Welcome to the Sacred Partnership Podcast, where relationships become the emotional, erotic, and spiritual adventure of a lifetime. I'm your host, Sarah Olivia. I'm a certified relationship and sex coach, a practitioner and teacher of the neo-tantric arts, and a lifelong seeker on the spiritual path. I know from my own decade-long partnership that the depth of connection, the level of mind-blowing intimacy, and the feeling of sacred devotion with a beloved, all of the reasons why we get into a relationship in the first place, these require intention, practice, and skill. And this is what I'm teaching here. Each week, I'll be weaving ancient wisdom, the most impactful relational teachings, as well as my own lived experience on this path, so that you and your beloved can create a partnership which feels rich with aliveness, truth, and devotion. So get comfy and let's dive in. Welcome back, my loves. I hope that you're having a beautiful week. I hope that the sun is shining as it is here. I hope that you are arriving in this moment with some spaciousness, with some capacity to receive. And I really intend that this episode, this story, this transmission today will reach you and serve you in the way that is most needed. So I want to talk to you today about my own journey. It's the first time that I'm sharing a bit of a more tender story about my relationship, about my journey towards a more true and fully expressed and fully received and felt experience of love. And my journey has not been smooth. It has been full of potholes and bumps. And I share this with you really in the hope and in the intention that if it resonates, that it could be the thing that helps you take the next right step. It is my really profound belief and my deep knowledge that it is each of our birthrights to experience wild, open-hearted love in this lifetime, as well as aliveness, wholeness, a sense of sacredness, and being at home in ourselves. And so this is a little bit of my journey towards that. And I share this with so much respect and reverence for my beloved, who, of course, has given me permission to share about these things, and so much gratitude for his openness, because I know that these stories, I know that these conversations will have profound impact and healing where they are needed. So let me set the scene. It's the summer of 2014. We're in Paris. I am 21. And I'm sitting in a large lecture hall in Paris at the Université Sciences Po, which is the political sciences university. God only knows what I was doing there because I was studying French literature, but it's the kind of wacky thing that I tend to do. And little did I know, but my beloved, my now husband, was also sitting in that auditorium. And the dean, or whoever, the director of the university, gave us a really quite bizarre speech telling us that everyone in his family, his grandparents, himself, and his children had all met their spouses at Sciences Po. So actually, this was not an experience of learning or an opportunity for learning. This was actually where we were going to meet our would-be spouses, our would-be life partners. So that was the prophecy that I was handed on my first day, and it turned out to be very much true. And now we didn't fall in love straight away. We met in a club, and he brought me a chair very kindly. I instantly forgot who he was. We were both in relationships, and we didn't really pay each other any attention for the first few months of knowing each other. But once we were free and available to connect and to actually become aware of the awesomeness of the other person, the speed at which we fell in love and became pretty enraptured with each other was kind of crazy. And you can imagine, it's Paris, we're 21, it really is a very romantic place. And I think back on it and I can see through these rose tinted glasses just all of the magic. Like the first time that we kissed felt like it was 10 minutes, but actually it was 3 hours. And suddenly we had to stop and leave because it was time for the club where we were at a party to close. And my friends were like a bit miffed as to why I had spent absolutely no time with them at this party. And after our first date, we walked home from the bar to my apartment, which was a 5-minute walk, and it took us 30 minutes. So the attraction and the connection was magical. Like a deep sense of coming home and a wild aliveness at the same time. Truly, truly beautiful. But as I look back on this time, it is also tinged with sadness for me, because while I was falling head over heels with this beautiful person, I was also experiencing moments of such painful shutdown, a complete disassociation from my heart, from my body, from my sensations, from what felt true. So as we moved from the initial stages of like, wow, who is this amazing person? This chemistry is insane. I want to spend all my time with you. As we moved from that to starting to forge a relationship, starting to have these deeper conversations, my husband, so we all have different battles in relationships. We all have different things that we are fighting against or with or for. And many people's experience, many women's experiences, unavailable men. Yeah, men who can't commit, who aren't sure, who aren't showing up, who aren't saying what needs to be said and doing what needs to be done. That is not my experience. My husband is the most devoted and committed and certain man I have ever met in terms of our relationship. He was so sure about me from the get-go. And while that now I realize is the most incredible gift I have ever been given, to be so chosen by someone, at the time, that felt terrifying. And now, setting aside my context, setting aside all of the reasons, of which there are many, why that was very difficult for me to fully accept and receive, that in itself can be terrifying for anyone. Even if you don't have a lot of relational trauma, a lot of big T and little t trauma, that level of total, unironic devotion can be terrifying to receive, because it requires a level of opening and vulnerability that can feel borderline threatening to our system. So it's not unusual to be a little bit terrified of that degree of intimacy and commitment. But I had, shall we say, an extra special mix of fuckery around my ability to fully feel, receive, and accept somebody's love. I had experienced profound loss as a child, and also really traumatic emotional betrayal. And I'd also had a pretty brutal heartbreak from my first love. So this was terrifying to me, having this person. And if you ever have the pleasure of meeting my husband, you'll see that he's one of those people that can hold a depth of care and presence and unironic honesty that not that many people can. And so to receive that was terrifying. It was deeply unsafe, and I did not trust it. And that meant that I experienced periods during this, beautiful, epic initial phase of falling in love in Paris. I experienced episodes of such painful shutdown and a desire to turn away and to reject him. I became very cold and scornful, and I can remember one moment we were hanging out at my flat in Paris. We were having a beautiful day, and out of nowhere, it was like these shutters had gone down between my true self, between the true parts of me that can feel and express, and then my external reality. That wasn't very well expressed, but you get the idea. I just wasn't there. It was like the lights were on and no one's home. And because I was 21, I had done next to none of the work that I have now done. I was not a particularly self-responsible person at that stage. I didn't know how to relate to my own trigger, how to resource myself and understand what was happening. I externalized, projected that, and made it his fault. So there was something wrong with him. There was something wrong with the connection. And this happened periodically over these first 6 months that we were together, where we would be in a beautiful state of flow. Everything was really good, and it would go too far. Things would be too good, and I needed to step away. I needed to shut it down. It became unsafe. And every time that happened, of course, it caused so much pain and heartbreak because I was horrible to him. I was really cruel. And I think this is something, I'm going to kind of pause and sidebar. I'm a good person. I'm a really loving person. And I have the capacity to do harm. And I have done harm to the person that I love the absolute most in the world. And that's one of the most painful regrets that I have to live with. But I'm constantly doing the work and holding myself accountable to not do that kind of damage ever again. And to create the safety and the trust necessary for him to feel that that is the case. But I want to name the fact that you can do harm in your relationship, even if you're a good person. That you can have the very best intentions, and through your unconscious patterns, through the parts of you that are still alive, that have not been acknowledged and integrated, you can do harm. So if you are unconsciously harming other people in your partnership or in relationships, look at that. It doesn't mean that you're a terrible person, but it might mean that there are parts of you that need tending to. There are things that have not yet been looked at, that have not yet been felt. You know what's even better than talking about sacred partnership? Practicing it. So I created a free sacred date night for you and your beloved. It's a 30-minute guided audio practice for you and your beloved to get emotionally naked together. And if you like, you can get actually naked too. Fall even deeper in love and maybe even lead into some epic and magical lovemaking. If this sounds like something you want access to, and I can think of no good reason why you wouldn't want access to this, you can head down to the link in the show notes or head over to saraholivia.com and click on the top bar of any page, and that will take you to access the practice. Have so much fun, enjoy, and let me know how it goes. So unsurprisingly, eventually we broke up. Eventually I sabotaged it to the extent that we broke up. And I completely broke his heart, and to a degree broke mine, and I went into such a deep shutdown and I span out. I was compulsively dating men. So we left university in Paris. I went back to London to do my degree, and I was compulsively dating. And I basically ended that period. Well, that period was abruptly brought to an end by experiencing an almost assault on a date, because I was in such dysregulation around relationship, around sex, around love. So we were apart, which was needed, which was important. He held the flame. God love that man. Thankfully, he held the flame, and I did my first chapter of the work. I kind of came to a little bit more of a sense of balance, reevaluated what I was doing in relationships, what I needed and wanted from relationships, from dating, found a little bit more of my sense of self-worth. And after a year and a half of having very different experiences and different adventures, we got back together. And I can remember when we got back together, just before I was about to move back to London from New York, where I trained as a natural foods chef, which was kind of my first incarnation of my work. And I was at the end of this beautiful time, which had very much just been, for me, I was in New York with my sister, and I had all of these beautiful female friends, dating a bit, but mostly just by myself. And I had this clarity, this download that just landed. I think I was in Washington Square Park actually at the time. And I just had this clarity that like, I'm going to get into a relationship with the person that I'm going to spend my life with as soon as I get back, as soon as I get back to London. I just didn't realize that it was him, that it was someone that I already loved, that already loved me. So long story short, we got back together. And my commitment has never wavered from that point. From the moment that we got back together, there was never a question of, are we going to stay together? I had managed to find enough stability and safety to find the commitment and the choice. However, I still hadn't found the safety in love. And I was still, for the most part, really numb in my body, in my heart. And once we transitioned out of that like renewed honeymoon stage, projectional love stage, if you want to understand more about the stages of love, check out a previous episode about that because it's very helpful to understand. Once I was no longer experiencing the high highs of new love, I discovered that I was numb. I discovered that I couldn't really feel much of anything other than extremes. So I could experience extreme joy and laughter. And I could experience real pain and grief and anger, but I couldn't experience much else, much between. And this was so heartbreaking. Well, it would be if I could have felt anything. I knew love. It's like I knew that I was in love. I knew that I loved my partner. I knew that I loved him. I knew that I chose him. But I couldn't feel it. And I kind of thought that that was just normal, to be honest. Like there would be moments where I was like, oh, I wish I could feel more. But I thought that that was just what happened, really, after like a couple of years of the relationship. And I didn't really draw the line between my emotional well-being and health, between unintegrated trauma and my ability to feel. But unconsciously, I was craving aliveness, connection. And so I would create rupture, I would create conflict in order to find connection. Because of course, when you are in rupture, you feel things, right? And the relief after rupture, I could feel that. But it was in the safe, regular day-to-day moments, I just couldn't feel anything. My sensations also in my body, my pleasure was so muted compared to what I'm now able to experience. And this could have ended our relationship, and it nearly did a few times, and it created so much unconscious pain in both of us. And it really came to a head, like for many people, I'm sure, after the long COVID lockdowns, where there was just kind of nowhere to hide from what was unexamined, from what had been unfelt. And by the end of 2021, not just because of what was happening relationally at all, but by the end of 2021, my mental health took an absolute nosedive. I was really barely functioning at that point. And to a degree, I'm grateful that it got to that level of extreme because I was forced to get help. I was forced to look at what needed to be looked at. So I had a huge amount of unintegrated trauma, abandonment, loss, heartbreak, massive distrust, lots of big and little t trauma, that I won't go into too much, but basically I was keeping myself safe. My entire nervous system was keeping me safe through numbness. And numbness and dissociation, shutdown, this is a very valid trauma response. It's a very valid coping mechanism. But at some point, if we can't find safe ways to experience and process and integrate the pain, the things that are unfelt, we can't experience the highs and the magic and the love. So I had to go through a long process of trauma integration, and I highly recommend EMDR for that. Really, really powerful. EMDR does something that no other modality really can. So if you have experienced, if you've experienced profound loss, grief, betrayal, abuse, EMDR, I highly recommend. And so through this experience of doing EMDR, I started to notice more my internal feeling state, notice more my love, gently and slowly. But it was very level, it was very balanced. And by the end of my experience going through this process of doing EMDR, I felt very level. I felt like, okay, I can tolerate life. Good, necessary. But I'm still not alive. I'm still not really feeling my full spectrum of aliveness, which I know is possible. And that is what led me down this path. That is what led me into this work. I found a beautiful teacher who had done the same training, which I have now done, the Vita training. And I went on a journey with her of pleasure reclamation, connecting to my original power source, my feminine energy, my womb, my pussy, my orgasm. And I found that I had been staying and functioning in such a tiny range, such a tiny little range within the full spectrum of human experience of emotion and pleasure and magic and energy. If you are feeling the soul level call to sacred partnership, if you want to walk the path of devotion and ever evolving aliveness with your beloved, the Sacred Partnership Portal is your invitation and your initiation. This 6-month journey is the answer to your feeling that there could and should be more to your relationship and sex life. The reality is that most relationships are operating on autopilot within a tiny spectrum of what we are capable of experiencing with our beloved. Sacred partnership is the key to unlocking a full spectrum, intentional experience of love, pleasure, and devotion. It is my highest offering, and it is the emotional, erotic, and spiritual adventure of a lifetime. You can reach out to me directly on any platform or find a link to inquire in the show notes. And I'm feeling, even in this moment in sharing this, I have more sensation, more aliveness in my body, in my energy, in my heart than I would have had, for years at a time. And so this journey to find my sensation, to reclaim love and pleasure, opened up a whole new world for me, opened up a whole new world in my relationship as well. And only once I had done a lot of the work myself did I start to discover, and was I introduced to the couples work, which isn't, my calling, my dharma. And very quickly I realized that was the thing. And so adding in these conscious relating practices, adding in these connection and energy and sacred sexuality practices with my partner, took it to a whole new level. And truly, it felt like a miracle. It felt like a miracle to feel my heart and to feel my love and to be able to intentionally generate and experience the somatic feeling of love. Because we all know that from that deep in love stage, and it oscillates through our relationship and through our life, but it can feel like that, like absolute heart cracked open, expanded deliciousness that happens in the heart and in the body when we're feeling deeply in love with somebody. It kind of can feel like that will happen very rarely after those first couple of years in a relationship. And so being able to intentionally generate that experience, which started happening once we introduced the couples work, once we introduced the soul gazing and the heart breath and all of these different beautiful tantric and neo-tantric practices, which I use in my work, which I introduce couples to who are on the path of sacred partnership. And it felt like we had both been just starved of this love. And it's like the fuel and the nourishment that we both need to flourish. And ultimately, I believe that all humans are alike in that we just need this love. We need to be able to receive and fully feel and also give in return this love in order to fully flourish and fully thrive. So what I would like to offer, what I would like to invite is, if you resonate with this story, if you have experienced this kind of shutdown and pushing away even with someone that you know is so right for you, is so wonderful, it's not them, it's you. And I say that with so much love, but I could have so easily just moved through man after man. And I'm so lucky that this person, I gesture over my shoulder because he's next door, that this person chose me so fully, because most people would have walked away from me from how badly I was behaving and treating him at many moments. I could have gone through so many relationships and just been like, this is just what happens. It's him. It's them. But it was me. It was me. So I invite you. If it is you, if you are pushing the person, the people that you love away because it is unsafe for you to receive and fully feel that love, I see you. I feel you. I know how hard that journey is, but it is so, so worth it. And if you are in partnership where it feels like that aliveness has just faded because it's not been tended to, and here is a reminder that you are able to consciously create and generate the experience of love and aliveness and connection. And so for today, I want to offer you a little practice. And this is actually a solo practice, but you could also do while eye gazing with your partner if you want to turn it into a partner practice. But this is a solo practice for you to invite your heart to open, for the energy, the sensation to flow in your heart, and for love to be safe and felt. So whenever we work with our energy body, whenever we work with the soma, with our emotions, attention, awareness, breath are the most profound tools that we can use, and they are very simple, but they really work. So you can bring your hands to the center of your chest, to your energetic heart center, and you can close your eyes and just start to drop your awareness and your breath, all of your attention into the heart space. Breathing more deeply in and out of the heart. And firstly, just noticing if you can soften a little bit with the breath in this space. If there is anywhere that feels like a hard edge that you can invite to soften and open and receive. And now I'd like you to imagine you can sense or see an orb of bright white or golden light at the center of your chest. And as you inhale, sense or see this orb of light expand in all 8 directions, filling the chest more fully and filling the chest with the experience, with the intention to experience and allow love. And doing this a few times. Breathing and expanding that golden orb of light at the heart. And then as you exhale, spreading, soaking that love through the entire system, the entire energy and emotional body, nourishing your whole being with love. I recommend doing this for a few minutes, but even just for those few breaths, I can feel the awakening. I can feel more love, and you can probably feel that in the transmission of listening, of watching this, of me to you. And so I remind you that you are always able to generate the experience that you want. You do have that power, and you are able to gather those tools. And of those tools, the tools of profound love in yourself and for another, profound connection and pleasure, soul level yes to someone else, being fully seen in the full spectrum of human experience, of those are the things that you are here for on this planet, and you're not totally sure how to actually experience those, how to actually have that with your beloved, then feel free to reach out to me. We could create some magic together. Now, with all of the love that we have generated here in these moments with these breaths, I wish you such a beautiful week. And I hope that this episode, that this story lands and arrives in your being, in your wisdom body in the way that it needs to. With all the love, I will see you next week. Sacred beings and beloveds, thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the Sacred Partnership podcast. Let me know what landed, what impacted you, what resonated, and what are you going to be integrating this week? I really genuinely want to know. I truly appreciate your support in this work. So every time you review, rate, share, or just generally spread the word about what I'm doing here, it means the absolute world to me, and it really, really helps. So thank you. I'll see you next week. And for now, I am sending you all the love, sex, and magic in the world.